every startup at a different stage has one key problem. I think in my case, it's probably velocity. And the ability to kind of move really fast. I think the biggest challenge I'm seeing is how do you kind of decide what your scope needs to be to achieve specific milestones? Because procurement and fabrication are like very high latency and high cycle time pieces, right? So you make one wrong move in defining a requirement, or let's say going down a path in terms of R&D which should not have been taken, and that results in weeks of time lost. And then that makes it very hard, especially for early stage startups. I think the other thing I would say is I'm probably just 1 degree away from an end consumer problem, because we're kind of solving for delivery. And the ecosystem with respect to the trust and the belief that things can actually be moved over people's heads in a city from point A to point B is still in its very nascent stages, right? So there's just a lot of natural kind of friction or opposition to the idea that, okay, yeah, this is going to move from here to here, even though US and a couple of other places have already solved these problems. But you're kind of up against just that belief ki, is this really going to work? Is this really possible?
So who has to do this educating of the customer or the user? The immediate user.
Yeah.
Does it have to be an industry body? Does it have to be individual startups who need to sort of?
Look, I think regulation definitely sets the sets the playing field up, right? But industry has to show that it's possible and doable. Of course, aligning to regulation. So I would say, the platforms that are
But regulation is also a function of the industry communicating to the regulators that, look, these are the things we need.
I'm a strong believer of policy follows innovation. So I do believe that, if industry kind of takes the first step in setting up the infrastructure, making all of this believable, then, that absolutely kind of regulation follows that. So in some sense, you're absolutely right. Like I would say it's industry's responsibility to take the lead, and kind of the regulations need to support.
Right. Who wants to go next?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of the challenges that you talked about, like even exports and stuff, that's exactly what we've been doing. So in terms of figuring out the market, but I feel a more fundamental problem that exists in scaling up in India is lack of people with fundamentals. So who know their stuff, even their high school stuff that they know really well, and they actually understand what Newton's laws are. We don't get those people.
We don't. Are you telling me people don't know Newton's law?
Very few people know that, and they like to go to the US. Who understand things properly, who can question things. They like to leave India as soon as possible. And the people that we are left over with, see, as button clickers, amazing. Like you give a process, you do everything properly, you set the process, and then you say, okay, now follow exactly this process or I'm going to fire you. It happens exactly as per the process. Now, can you get someone to create that process, create it from scratch, observe every single thing that's happening? That's a rare commodity. And that's not easy to find. Even though we have the highest population, we don't have a lot of these people. And that's, I think, is a major stumbling block, because when you want to create something innovative, something where you want to push boundaries, you need such people. And you also need people who are less fearful, because our system is all about creating people who are scared of everything. And
that's my favorite topic. Those two are my favorite topics.
So that's something for which I don't know what a solution is. Like, see, the people say that, okay, you need to start a training program. But if you're getting someone post-college, what training do you give after that? And what's the use of the last 20 years of training for that? So that's something that I think is a more fundamental problem that we need to address.
So without mentioning the institutions, I was having this conversation with somebody else when this whole, sort of conversation started at a national level that India needs more deep tech sort of startup. Thing is, your best known engineering colleges, revel in the consultancy job that graduates get. I mean, when was the last time an engineering college has celebrated a research job? When was the last time we celebrated a research paper? So then, I mean, you will have this problem.
Yeah, but I think it's also a cultural issue. That's something that's more difficult to change. Because even I've seen kids who are like super good, And then they're like, so my father, mother wants me to go to the US. My cousin is there, and the competition is there, and salaries don't match up, and they can't show their faces to all the relatives.
Yes.
So it's fly
That's a
out.
big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So that's something that's also there, even though
No, but I'm saying that, you know, when an institution has so much power, because now everybody desires to go to those engineering colleges in India, I think that power can be also used for good, to say, and to make these things far more attractive to the students, because students are malleable at the time that they're entering. You know, once they've taken the exam, they've got through. I think they are malleable. Yeah, of course, there's also the social factors in place.
True.
This is my view. I have a very strong view on this. Okay, you wanted to go next, please.
Yeah, I can go next. Okay, so for us also, like, we are into batteries for drones and aviation industry. Our major challenge currently is definitely the same non-predictability of what our customers want. We're suppliers to the industries, like we are into agricultural segment, where we supply battery for agricultural drone segment. We are supplied to the companies who are supplying to defense. Now, majority of the agriculture companies are dependent on government tenders. And defense, again, like, it is very condition based. Today, some tensions are happening, and we need batteries overnight for our drones.
Like what he
Yes,
mentioned.
exactly.
Yeah.
So supply chain becomes a major bottleneck, not just from our end, because overnight they want a big number, how to supply that. And secondly, how to maintain that inventory
So how
as
do you
well.
manage it when you get that
Inventory,
kind of a
yes.
request? What do you do? You say no,
Exactly.
or you try and manage it?
And you have to choose from the. Sometimes we have to take a hard decision of even who has a much more pressing problem or pressing need to supply batteries to. Supply chain from both the ends. So we also procure our raw material, and those raw materials have a longer lead time, sometimes even 2 months.
Yeah.
So it becomes a major bottleneck. So though we have been educating our customers to have a much more planned way, at least on the agricultural side, seasons are there. By God's grace, India is a country where agriculture season happens throughout the year in some or other part of the country. So that was how we've started educating our customers that have a plan, so that we can have a proper planning for you. We can provide you batteries, and even at a desirable cost, because if there is an overnight requirement, even our costs shoot up. So this is how we are handling. On the defense side, of course, we're supplying to the companies who are suppliers to the defense directly. So same issues, whenever there's a tension, they'll come back and they want it overnight. So that problem is something they have to wait for a lead time, which not necessarily benefits all the
So
time.
if you wanted to send a message, what should that lead time be? 6 months, 8 months, 1 year?
2 months at least, plan better for the entire year, and we can have.
So that's for the order book.
Order
But
book.
for any further sort of innovation, what's the lead time?
So,
and do you want to work closely with your customers to further innovate, iterate on the product?
So if it's a very regular kind of, so there are two kind of customers again. Some have a very regular kind of requirements and regular batteries. The specifications are quite frozen. For that, it is very easy to supply in 15 days or 1 month times. But certain customers have very customized requirement. I want my battery to be operational at minus 40 degrees centigrade, or Leh and Ladakh kind of situations. Certain kind of vacuum-oriented batteries are required. When it comes to customized thing, it's a long process. 3 months, 4 months, because it has to pass through a testing phase, and then eventually it happens. So you can't suddenly come overnight and say, I need a production thing, because the climatic conditions are also very rough and tough. So better planning is the only way out.